This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 55th time ever, we are live. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And this week is, I should just say that's not really an engaging week in terms of like big Hollywood news in general. But there are a lot of things we can delve into here. A lot of stories that did come out. Some interesting stories in the world of entertainment that I do want to get myself into talking with you guys about. But we had a couple of big stories happening in the world of sports that I want to delve into. There was a big new season of a specific show where the longtime host retired, and now there's a new host. I'm going to do a review for that. And looking back on one of the great legendary actors of all time who passed away this week. So we do have some stuff to get to here, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Let's start off with the weekend box office in general, and not really that much of a surprise, really, in terms of what movie was the number one movie again, but there were a couple of surprises here and there that we can get into here real quickly. I'll go ahead and just start with the number 5 film this week. This is a surprise that the Dennis Quaid biopic Ronald Reagan, I should say, still hanging in there, but then again, there's really not a whole lot of new releases to combat it in general. Close to $3 million, 38.6% drop-off from last week, $23.3 million after 3 weeks. Film cost $25 million to make, so I kind of had a feeling that this was going to stick around after the cinema score for this was overall pretty good, and that's usually the thing you could tell. You can usually tell from that what the movie is going to hold on to in the box office longer, and that was one of those ones that was definitely one of those ones that held up pretty well for the most part. So nothing more to say about that one. Not much more to say about the number 4 movie, a new release that I know nothing about except it's from the guy from the Daily Wire, Matt Walsh. Am I Racist?, which is a man investigating diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, exposing absurdities through undercover social experiments. I've never heard of it before, but apparently people I'd say people saw it enough to get into the top 5, but not really that much of a big opening in general. $4.7 million, 1,500 theaters in general. I don't think it had that big of a budget in general. So, like I said, I know nothing about this movie, so I'm not even going to comment on it. So, yeah, but it's in there. It's surprising how it beat out like big movies like The Killer's Game, the Dave Bautista movie, which just barely missed the top 5, and even then it didn't make a whole lot of money, which means that's another bullseye against Lionsgate so far. And we're gonna have another bullseye from them in a couple weeks with Megalopolis coming out. But $2.6 million for The Killer's Game for a movie that cost $30 million to make. Not a good sign. Not a good sign for that movie whatsoever. Back to the top 5. Number 3 was the number 2 movie from last week, Deadpool and Wolverine, which brought in $5.2 million, only dropping 26% from last week, up to $621.4 million after 8 weeks. Already is well over $1 billion at this point, $1.3 billion. So that's the biggest thing that happened to this movie this week. Nothing there to really push it out. So probably going to stick in the top 5 for a little bit longer. Moving on to the biggest new release of the weekend, number 2, Speak No Evil, with James McAvoy in it. And, of course, this is Blumhouse Pictures. This is the latest film where they have a family invited to spend a whole weekend in a lonely home in the countryside. But as the weekend progresses, they realize that a dark secret lies within the family who invited them. And essentially, you've seen this trailer all over the place. People online were just like, on the day this opened up, it's just like, oh, well, we don't have to see that trailer anymore, so that's good news. Yeah, the bad news is now you're going to have to sit through constant trailers for Joker Folie à Deux, which, I'm sorry, the more I see trailers for this, the less and less I'm getting excited for it. The mixed reviews for it are not a promising sign. And just every time I see the trailer for it, I'm just kind of like, okay, I can't do this, man. But I am going to go see it at some point, so yeah. $11.5 million this weekend. Only cost $15 million to make worldwide. It's already passed that budget of $15 million at $20.8 million. So it's already made its money back. So it's instant profit from this point forward. So they did what they needed to do. And lastly, we have the number one movie this week, which again, not really a surprise. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is the number one film. Dropping 53% from last week, $51.6 million after 2 weeks, $188 million in total after 2 weeks. Domestic worldwide gross is up to $264 million. Cost $100 million to make, so it was pretty much making profit as soon as the weekend ended last week. So instant profit from this point forward. But does it stay the number one movie next week? Because we have Transformers 1 coming out next week. And the early word of mouth on it is good. It's got a lot of great reviews. They had a sneak preview of it last night, what I could have gone to see, but I was at the Backyard Brawls. You saw that video. If you want to go check that out, check out the video over on the main page. It's the last Movie Stop episode I did. Great game overall, but it would have been cool to see Transformers 1 on the big screen a week in advance, but I'll go ahead and get to see it at some point. Maybe not this next week, because I have a pick game on Saturday to go to, but at some point down the road, maybe the week after that, when I go see The Wild Robot, I'll definitely go and check it out. But Transformers 1 is going to be the big new release next week, and they'll probably be guaranteed to be in the top 5. Could even surpass Beetlejuice maybe, if the word of mouth early on gets going in terms of the, in terms of getting people into the theaters. And kids movies in September usually are very hard to open up because everyone's back in school now, so it's very, very hard to open a kids film in the month of September. But there's been some successes in the last couple of years, and we've got 2 to end the month here, so we will go ahead and see what happens as the weeks continue on. So that's the box office this week. Again, no real new surprises in any way, shape, or form, but with that said, let's go ahead and get into some headlines for the week. So in the world of movie news, so Destin Daniel Cretton may have lost on the possibility of directing the Avengers movies, but he's coming back to the MCU one way or another, because he just signed on he's in talks to direct Spider-Man 4. Of course, Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland in it. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. And it says, Destin Daniel Cretton is doing whatever a Spider can. The filmmaker behind Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is in talks to sign on to direct Spider-Man 4. The move brings an end to speculation on who would spin the web for one of the biggest franchises in Hollywood. Cretton will bring fresh blood to the iteration of Spider-Man, which stars Tom Holland, and is a co-production between 2 separate studios, Sony and Disney-owned Marvel Studios. It will also mark the 4th director to take over a Spidey solo feature. John Watts directed the previous 3 Holland-starring movies, with Mark Webb heading the 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies starring Andrew Garfield, Sam Raimi directing the trilogy that featured Tobey Maguire. Sony and Marvel had no comment. The Holland Spider-Man movies grew into $1 billion franchises, with Spider-Man No Way Home enticing pandemic-weary audiences out of their homes to gross another $2 billion as it was released in December 2021. The film also starred Maguire and Garfield. Chris McKenna and Eric Summers are back on script duties, while Marvel heads Kevin Feige and former Sony head Amy Pascal are producing. Sources say that the Spider-Man 4 is running, not crawling, full steam ahead, and will shoot early next year. It is unclear what the story will be, as No Way Home ended with the world forgetting that teenager Peter Parker was the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That memory wipe included those closest to him, including MJ, who no longer even knows who Peter is. In June 2023, Holland told the Hollywood Reporter that he and the producers had recently undergone a series of meetings about a potential 4th installment. The first 4 meetings were about, why would we want to do this again? And I think we found the reason why, Holland said. Cretton is popular in the Marvel fold. His Shang-Chi is considered a highlight in the post-Avengers Endgame phase of movies, and he was on board to direct the mega-budget Avengers The Kang Dynasty, but dropped off last November amid the product change of production schedule and evolution stemming from Jonathan Major's assault trial. Marvel has always wanted to find another feature for him. His nabbing the Spider gig is another vote of confidence of his work on Wonder Man, Marvel TV's Disney Plus show that stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, which is in post-production. The filmmaker remains attached to direct a live-action adaptation of Naruto and a sequel of Shang-Chi, but it's unclear how Spider-Man will affect those projects. I really like the Tom Holland movies. I like this director as a whole. I was kind of bummed that he didn't get to do the next Avengers movie, but it's good to see that he's staying in the fold at Marvel. They must really like him a lot. I've liked a lot of his movies that he's directed. I'm curious where the direction is that they go with this. I think No Way Home was a perfect ending to that Spider-Man trilogy as a whole, but, franchises never really die in general, no matter how hard you try, and this is one of those ones where it's just like, yeah, it's something that I feel like it's going to continue on no matter how much you want it to go away. I personally thought it ended on a really good note, but I'm not the one that's running Marvel Studios right now. Of course, they're going to do whatever they can to bring Spider-Man back again, and yeah. I mean, I'll definitely gonna go see it. I've liked what they've done with the Spider-Man in the MCU, so I'm really looking forward to see what the direction is that they take from this. But yeah, Destin Daniel Cretton, I think I'm pronouncing it right. Destin Daniel Cretton, potentially in talks to direct Spider-Man 4. I'd definitely be in on that 100%. So okay, moving on to the next story. So yeah, Judd Apatow and Steven Spielberg, two of the most brilliant filmmakers of recent memory. I mean, Judd Apatow has done a lot of great comedy. Steven Spielberg, one of the greatest filmmakers, if not the greatest filmmaker of all time, are teaming up on a big movie of all things, the battle between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And I've got the story here from Deadline Hollywood on this. It says here, Judd Apatow has been attached to direct, and Steven Spielberg has come aboard to produce Cola Wars. The film is in development at Sony. Spielberg will produce through his Anvil Entertainment banner. Deadline revealed back in April that the studio bought the project for $1 million plus as a pitch, telling the true story of Pepsi's attempt to challenge Coca-Cola's century-long reigns as the world's top cola. It uncapped the Cola Wars of the mid-1980s, which includes everything from Michael Jackson's fiery mishap to the new Coke debacle, as the ultimate underdog tale of history's most iconic second-place contender Pepsi, vying for the number one spot Coca-Cola. The Cold Wars pitch is being written by Jason Schumann and Ben Queen. Schumann is the co-creator and writer of Apple's hit show Acapulco and was executive producer on HBO's Winning Time, and the producers of 2022's Oscar-nominated indie To Leslie. Queen is currently adapting Naomi Novak's fantasy novel His Majesty's Dragon as an hour-long series for Fox. He recently adapted the novella A Note of Explanation by Vita Sackville-West for Netflix. He's also the writer of Cars 2 and Cars 3 for Pixar, as well as the creator of NBC's A to Z and Powerless. This is early in the development processes, but the ingredients are here for a movie about an iconic product on the order of Ben Affleck's directed Air, about the battle by Nike to win a shoe deal with Michael Jordan for the sneaker line that transformed the company. Maya Erie is overseeing Cola Wars for Sony. So yeah, Judd Apatow and Steven Spielberg, two of the most revolutionary filmmakers of their time. Like I said, Steven Spielberg has done so many classic movies, and Judd Apatow was at the forefront of the revived revolution of the R-rated comedy of the late 2000s. And these two on their own are usually very, very solid. Even their worst movies as directors, they're still trying. They're still doing the best they can. They don't really half-ass their way through it. And it really can go one of two ways. It could go like Air, which was one of the best movies from last year. Great movie directed by Ben Affleck. Or it could be an absolutely horrible movie like Unfrosted earlier in the year, directed by Jerry Seinfeld, which was a movie that just felt like a bad Saturday Night Live sketch blown up into a 90-minute movie. I mean, it literally could go one of two ways, but I trust Judd Apatow and Steven Spielberg more than I do with Jerry Seinfeld in a movie about the creation of Pop-Tarts and how they became the company that they were. I trust these two guys to do a great movie about the battle between Coca-Cola and Pepsi, especially during the 1980s, which, as the description says, was a chaotic time where Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they were literally in a war with one another, and it just really could lead to a lot of intriguing ideas for what a movie like this could really be. So I am definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with this, indeed. So, moving on to our next story, and that is, I'm about to say that is of course, but I don't know why we were saying that, but anyway, let's just move on to the next story. How about that? So Michael B. Jordan is heading back to the director's chair again, not for another Creed movie, not yet at least, but MGM is keeping him on board for another, I guess you could say a continuation of an MGM property from the past, but I've got the story right here. This is again from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, after breaking box office records for a directing debut with Creed 3, Michael B. Jordan looks to have lined up his next high-profile helming gig. Sources tell Deadline that Jordan has signed to direct the Thomas Crown Affair for Amazon MGM Studios, which will release the film exclusively in theaters worldwide. As previously reported, Jordan is also set to star in the film, as well as produced via his Outlier Society banner alongside Elizabeth Raposo. Outlier Society has a first film deal and overall TV deal with Amazon MGM. This marks the third Thomas Crown Affair pick, with the most recent bowing in 1999, where Pierce Brosnan played the rich playboy who enjoys stealing art from a hobby, but meets his match when an insurance investigator, Rene Russo, who quickly fall for each other. The original 1968 movie paired Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway and was directed by Norman Jewison. While Thomas Crown doesn't get into as many physical altercations as a James Bond or an Ethan Hunt, he does bring that charisma in a character that the industry is always looking for and gives Jordan another layered character to dive into. Jordan and Outlier have been developing the project for some time, and after recently wrapping production on Ryan Coogler's upcoming event film at Warner Brothers, Jordan was ready to dive back into the directing chair after the success of Creed 3. With Jordan now on board to direct and star, the next priority is to find his co-star to team up the screen with. Given what the previous roles did for the respective female leads, the part is sure to drive the attention of many A-listers in town. Drew Pearce wrote the script. A previous draft was written by Wes Took and Justin Britt Gibson, which was based on the original film. Plot details are being kept under wraps. Patrick McCormick and Mark Tobaroff will also serve as producers on Thomas Crown Affair. Alan Trustman, writer of the original 1968 film, is the executive producer. Jordan previously directed and starred for MGM in Creed 3, which opened to a franchise record $58.6 million, making it the highest debut ever for a sports movie. The film, which Jordan also produced via Outlier, went on to earn $276 million in the worldwide box office, proving Jordan and the company have the ability to deliver global hits. The film also allowed him to show his range by delivering on those visceral boxing sequences for which the Rocky franchise is known, while adding his own touch and set pieces using an anime style he had grown up loving. He also showcased his touch with scenes outside the ring and his actors where punches never thrown. I mean, Michael B. Jordan really has the potential to become the next great director. After what I saw with Creed 3 last year, it was very high up on my list of the best movies I saw last year. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what he does next as a director. The Thomas Crown Affair, it's an interesting series of films. I finally got to watch the 1968 one not too long ago when I had to watch the 99 one for Time About the Movies. I thought both movies were pretty good. The original one is going to be the classic one. I actually kind of enjoyed the Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo one a lot too. Like, I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed those movies in general. It'll be interesting to see what Michael B. Jordan brings to the table with this. After what he did with Creed 3, anything this guy does at this point, I'm really going to be in on it as a director. Like, I'm still that guy that wants to see him go ahead and direct a live-action Akira movie. I want to see what he can do with that. I might be the only person that may think that, but that's just my thinking. I really would like to see what he does with an Akira movie. I think he's the best person you can go ahead and get to make a really good Akira movie if you want to take it the live action route. I'm not saying that you should do it, but if you're going to try to develop that project again, Michael B. Jordan's either going to be on it or get the hell on out of here, bud. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the Thomas Crown Affair remake will be like with Michael B. Jordan behind the camera. Should be pretty good, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So like I said, not a busy week in terms of movie news, some stories of interest there, but the big stories really that came out this week came from the world of sports, because we had a couple of stories that I did want to delve into here, and let's start with what's going on in Cleveland. So yeah, pay no attention to the fact that the Browns barely got out of Jacksonville with an 18-13 win today. Things are not looking good in Cleveland whatsoever, especially with the quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Now, the story, if you have not been hearing the story all week long about why Deshaun Watson is in the news again, I have Pro Football Talk here talking about a story that happened, a story that started on Monday and got an update today. But, so here's the story here. That if you don't realize what's going on here, let me go ahead and click the story from Monday so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about here. The title of this is New Deshaun Watson Lawsuit Becomes a Potential Problem If Case Wasn't Disclosed to the Browns. And the story goes, on Monday, a new lawsuit was filed against Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. For Browns fans who have concluded that Watson isn't the answer, the question becomes whether the new allegations could allow the Browns to escape the balance of the 5-year fully guaranteed deal. The short answer is maybe. The longer answer comes from Watson's contract. PFT has obtained a copy of it. The key provision is paragraph 42. The full language of paragraph 42. Player hereby represents and warns, except in otherwise disclosed to club in writing, as of the date hereof, that one player has not been charged with, indicted for, convicted, or or pled nolla contendere. It's written. I think that's how it's spelled here. Nolla contendere to any felon and or misdemeanor involving fraud or mortal turpitude. Second, player has not engaged in conduct which could subject him to a charge, indictment, or conviction of any such offense. And 3, no circumstances exist that would prevent players' continuing availability to the club for the duration of his contract. Did Watson disclose the specific potential claim to the Browns in writing before he signed the contract? That's the key question. If he did, the lawsuit can't activate paragraph 42. If he didn't, things get potentially complicated. Based on the default language connected to the various guarantees, Watson doesn't necessarily have to be suspended for the payments to be voided. Instead, if he violates any material terms of the contract, including but not limited to paragraph 42, Watson has defaulted and the future guarantees can be voided. But here's the important language from paragraph 42. No circumstances exist that would prevent players' continuing availability to the club for the duration of this contract. The language suggests that Watson's availability has been interrupted by the circumstances in the lawsuit. In other words, he needs to be suspended for the alleged conduct. Could he be suspended under the personal conduct policy? The first question in this regard is whether the league even knows about these allegations. As previously mentioned, the NFL has declined comment regarding the new lawsuit against Watson. As a practical matter, this is about 2025 and 2026. He's still due to receive $92 million fully guaranteed after the current season. If he would be suspended before the 2025 season begins, the Browns could declare a default, void the guarantees, and move on from Watson. To summarize, did Watson disclose this to the Browns? If yes, the issue is over. If he didn't, and if this ends up being suspended for it, the Browns could indeed escape the final 2 years of the deal. So that was Monday's story. Here's an update from today, and this was a story about Jay Glazer from Fox reportedly put out that he initially put out that there was well, I'll let him say it here. Let me see if I can find it right here, because I don't know where this is in here, but it was something that was brought up during the pregame show today. So let me go ahead and see if I can find it here. Oh, and here we go.
So here's the deal. The original contract that was fully guaranteed for Deshaun Watson actually had protections in there. Even if he got suspended the 22 or 23 seasons, he still would not lose any of his guarantees. But very quietly this offseason in August, they restructured his deal. When they restructured it, they did not put the same protections in for the next several years. So if he has a suspension moving forward, there could be a chance they can go back and get some of those guarantees.
So what he's saying is that when they restructured the deal for Deshaun Watson, supposedly they took a claim out that clause out of there that would have prevented him from essentially being losing all that money. But according to this news story here from Pro Football Talk, today's confusion came from an incorrect interpretation of Watson's August 2024 restructuring by Jay Glazer at Fox Sports. Glazer, to his credit, has admitted the mistake. It's understandable this stuff is complicated. It took me a while to parse through the language to figure out how the Browns could, if they wanted, void guarantees. To summarize, Watson was never protected from a potential void of guarantees from a suspension in 2024 or beyond. However, he was always protected from a potential void of guarantees after a suspension arising from any claim he had disclosed in writing to the team, before signing any of his contracts with the Browns. No one is saying whether the claims were disclosed, which perhaps means it wasn't. Regardless, here's how things will likely unfold from here. Now that the league is looking into the situation, as a practical matter, it's likely it's something that will be resolved after the 2024 season, putting the 2025 and 2026 seasons in potential jeopardy. So the whole point of this is that there's a good chance that at the very least after this season, Deshaun Watson ain't playing for the Cleveland Browns anymore. We'll be lucky if he's playing for another football team, unless they get him dirt cheap. I mean, this could be literally like the same situation that Russell Wilson went through in Denver last year. Not that Russell Wilson did the same things that Deshaun Watson did, but the Denver Broncos wanted to get rid of Russell Wilson, even though they still had a chance to make the playoffs in the last couple of games of the season, and they shut him down before the season ended. And even though Russell Wilson's currently sitting as the third backup quarterback in Pittsburgh right now, while he's making sure that Cap's ready to go, like Denver is putting up all the money for him right now. Like he's basically getting paid less than $2 million from the Steelers, and he's getting most of that money all the way in Denver. So really, like Russell, it's good to be Russell Wilson right now. But the whole thing with Deshaun Watson is that this was a bad contract from the get-go, and this is the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have been notoriously known for years to make really bad contracts, and this may be up there with one of the worst trades of all time, because not only did they sign him, giving up all those draft picks to the Houston Texans that have made the Houston Texans the better team that they are, as I'm recording this, we're about getting ready to see how they're going to do against Chicago on Sunday Night Football on NBC. But all those draft picks, Cleveland gave up could have helped Baker Mayfield. They could have look at how good Baker Mayfield is doing right now in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay right now has the possibility to be a contender this year. It's funny because on this channel we've also started doing NFL predictions, and I'm starting to put together some side things within that show. So I have like a power ranking section that I'm working on right now. I've got Tampa Bay pretty high up there right now as one of the 3 best teams in Week 2. But then again, we haven't seen what Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, and Philadelphia done yet, so this list could definitely change. But Tampa Bay is very high up there right now in terms of having a great Week 2 in general. I know that this is probably not how power rankings work, but this is just how I look at these teams going forward, and I've always been known to do that with any list I do. I always go against the norm. I don't usually go like with the NFL and most other power rankings where, it's the teams that feel like the NFL and these sports companies want to be the top teams in the country right now. I don't even have Kansas City as the number 1 team right now. They're right in the top 5 at number 4. I've got New Orleans at number 1 because of what they did, not just last week to Carolina, which was one thing, but what they did to Dallas was just that's the thing that made me say, okay, New Orleans may be for real here. For now, we'll see how that goes, but you'll be able to see that list on Wednesday when I do my Week 3 predictions. But spoiler alert, Carolina is the worst team of the week, and will probably stay that way if you saw what happened today against the Chargers. But my point is that the Houston Texans have become a much better team, and a team that could easily contend for a championship. I've got them as my dream AFC selection for the Super Bowl this year, right next to the Detroit Lions in the NFC. I think a Texans-Lions Super Bowl would be pretty fun, but the Texans are a better team than they are right now, and it's all thanks to Cleveland, who not only gave up all those draft picks, but before Deshaun Watson even took the field, had already signed him to a contract with $230 million in guaranteed money. This isn't even a typical Cleveland move. This is advanced, stupid Cleveland moves. This isn't just me saying it as a division rival fan. Of course, I'm a Steelers fan, but even if the Steelers had done something like this, I'd still be saying this is a really bad deal in general. But the Steelers were smart, though, when it comes to their quarterbacks. Justin Fields and Deshaun Watson come here, and the Steelers barely have to pay them much because the other teams they came from are paying the bill for them. But I digress. This deal, though, takes a team that could have easily been really, really good with Baker Mayfield under center, and the Browns threw him out the door because they took a chance on Deshaun Watson and gambled badly. It's like with Kevin Costner and his blockbuster and his passion projects. He spends all that money thinking that he's going to hit the jackpot, and then you get a movie like Horizon, which crashes and burns pretty quickly. It's that type of a situation right now in Cleveland in general. And right now, Baker Mayfield is thriving right now. Yeah, Deshaun Watson and the Browns got away with a victory today, but is anyone in Cleveland really that excited right now? And really, it would not surprise me if that good feeling they have right now does not last whatsoever. Cleveland does have good pieces on their team, especially with their defense, but I don't think that's going to stick around, especially with the situation with Deshaun Watson getting more and more intense as it goes along here. And I don't even think I even covered what this new lawsuit was about, but let me go ahead and run through that real quickly. Now, I can't really explain it in a video where it make a whole lot of sense, but if you want to find a video, look for Microphone's video. He did a video talking about the lawsuit in general, which I think it's very good. He's a great channel on here that does a lot of sports news in general. He do it easily better than I'm gonna do here. So go ahead and check out his video. You should be able to find it on there. I think it's called The End of Deshaun Watson, but I have the story here from ESPN, and it says here. Let me see if I can find that story in particular. It says right here, the attorney representing the plaintiff in the civil lawsuit accusing Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson of sexual assault and battery told ESPN on Thursday that the woman will speak to the NFL within 2 weeks. We will be scheduling a meeting with the NFL and hope that can be accomplished in the next 2 weeks. Attorney Tony Busby wrote in an email, "We have a video and 2 additional witnesses from the NFL to speak with. I personally never had confidence in the NFL's disciplinary policies, but my client has chosen to engage it." According to the lawsuit, which was filed on Monday in Harris County, Texas, the alleged actions occurred in October 2020 between Watson and a woman identified as Jane Doe in the court filing. We're set to have dinner at the woman's apartment. Watson was a member of the Houston Texans at the time. Watson on Wednesday denied the allegations in a statement issued by his attorney, Rusty Harton. The NFL on Tuesday said it is reviewing the complaint under the personal conduct policy, but the league added that they will not be adding Watson to the commissioner's exempt list because there have been no formal charges, and the league's review just began. And let's see. Okay, here it is on the bottom here. In the earlier civil cases, a judge compelled the women suing Watson. This is talking about the previous one. In fact, let me go see if I can find Microphone's video, because he sums it up pretty nicely in this video. So let me see if I can find it real quick. Alright, I got it right here. Microphone at the end of Deshaun Watson. Let me see if I can get to the part where he's talking about what actually happened with Deshaun Watson and the woman here, because he does talk about it in here.
It's disastrous.
That this was just a one-off performance, saying that the reason why he performed so poorly was because he lost his father and a close friend prior to this game, which
he's talking about beforehand. Deshaun Watson tried to put the blame on the death of his father and his, what was it, his brother's friend or something like that? Let me see. My brother, my teammate yesterday, DeAndre Overton. So yeah, he was using that in the excuse after the Cowboys lost in general. And granted, I'll give him that. I mean, yeah, you've got that in your mind. Then you've also got this lawsuit in your mind. It's a lot for him to really take in general. But back to the video at hand.
Lost his father and a close friend prior to this game.
A close friend is what I'm trying to say.
No matter what person you are, whenever you lose a parent, the world just tips off of its access. It doesn't feel the same anymore. So do I think the Browns should bench Deshaun Watson for Jameis Winston? They can't. You don't really have a choice here. And what isn't really helping the cause is, believe it or not, there are new allegations being levied against Watson. According to Pro Football Talk, he's being sued from an alleged incident in October 2020 where he is being accused of SA and battery while on a date. Now here's what the lawsuit says. According to Pro Football Talk, via Mike Florio, on Monday, Deshaun Watson was sued in Houston for SA and battery and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The accusations are strikingly similar to those made against Watson in more than 20 lawsuits filed in 2021. However, the plaintiff in the new case, who filed under the Jane Doe pseudonym, contends that she went on a date with Watson. Most, if not all, cases arose from paid massages that Watson had arranged. The lawsuit explains that the date was set for October 10, 2020. Watson, per the lawsuit, was initially unable to find her apartment. He called her and allegedly began aggressively yelling and screaming and stating that he could not find her apartment and that he doesn't have time for this. The lawsuit then contains the following allegations. When Watson finally arrived at Doe's apartment, Doe had not finished putting on makeup, so she invited Watson in to have a seat in her living room while she finished getting ready. As she was putting makeup on in her bathroom, Doe left the bathroom open and attempted a conversation with Watson, trying to ease the tension from his angry outburst. Doe quickly began to believe that she was talking to herself because Watson wasn't responding. Jane Doe came out of her bathroom to investigate Watson's silence and shockingly found him completely naked on her bed, lying face down on his stomach. I don't mean to laugh, it's just like Watson and these massages have become such a meme in the NFL.
They're showing a tweet from he's showing a tweet from Ghetto Grok saying Deshaun Watson getting his shoulder massage, and it's a guy from the New York Giants named Holmes, and like it literally looks like the dude has his pants down. You can see his butt crack, and there's a guy like fluffing his nether regions, if you will. But it's a funny little image right there. But the situation here is not really funny at all, really. But I'll let Microphone continue on with the conversation.
NFL community, that the fact that originally they were supposed to go on a date and this woman comes out and like Watson goes from being really angry at her, saying I can't find your place, where are you at, let's go on this date, to her not being able to hear Watson and then her coming out to the bedroom just to see Watson face down and assume a massage.
And again, they're showing he's showing another tweet that says he can only get massages from himself now, and it shows an image of Deshaun Watson like with his leg up in the air, like massaging his leg while there's like a Cincinnati Bengals player's butt right in front of him. Like these are actually really informative, very funny videos too. So like I said, Microphone, check him out. But let me go ahead and continue on from the video here.
position. It's just a hilarious image in my mind. Bro was supposed to go on a date, but changed his mind and said, you know what? I'm a little stressed out. It's massage time. Watson's obsession with these massages needs to be studied. Now, continuing on, while Jane Doe stood there in shock, Watson turned his head and aggressively insisted that she massage him, gesturing to his buttocks. Jane Doe asked if Watson meant he wanted her to massage his back, but Watson indicated that it was his buttocks that he wanted massaged. This is just insane, bro. It's like you went from, I can't find you, I'm pissed off, to going to her house, waiting for her to get dolled up, to her coming outside into the bedroom, to this man saying, I want you to massage my ass, damn it! And I'm not trying to say it's not true or anything, it's just the situation's bizarre. Jane Doe was at this point in the encounter terrified. She was in her small apartment with a much larger man, and she was still reeling from Watson's outburst in aggression on the phone. And I would say I'd be terrified from the inconsistency in someone's personality at this point as well. Now, Doe tried to appease Watson by rubbing his back as opposed to his buttocks, but Watson began insisting, again, that she focus on his glutes. Seemingly frustrated that Doe would only rub his back, Watson then turned over, revealing an erection. Watson continued to demand that
Erection,
Jane Doe
by the
massage
way.
him, gesturing from his knees to his groin. Jane Doe froze in fear, unsure of how to refuse Watson's advances without jeopardizing her safety. Confused and scared, she reiterated to Watson that she wasn't a masseuse. Watson asked her what she wanted to do instead. Before Jane Doe could answer, Watson grabbed her leg and positioned her so that she was lying down. Watson then partially disrobed her and penetrated her without consent, implicit or explicit. Jane Doe felt paralyzed, unsure if she should risk her safety by trying to stop Watson or endure what he was doing. Watson essayed Jane Doe for several minutes in missionary before grabbing her and
Sexually
flipping
assaulted,
her
by
over.
the way.
Watson continued to do this aggressively from behind. Jane Doe finally gathered the courage and strength to escape Watson and ran to her dresser to grab a heavy piece of decor for self-defense and yelled at Watson to get out of her apartment. Enraged, Watson stormed out of Jane Doe's apartment. The plaintiff is once again represented by, anyone want to guess? I'll give you like 3 seconds. If you said Tony Busby, of course you're correct. The new case raises plenty of issues. The standpoint of the league.
So, it sounds like Deshaun Watson is a fucked up dude, man. Like, this is textbook definition of, like, a case that should not be completely just ignored like the NFL is doing right now. But it is good to know that they are looking into it now and they are going to talk to this person and these people and see this video in general, because the way they make it sound in the lawsuit sounds completely fucked up. And yeah, it just makes Deshaun Watson look all more the scummy person that he probably is. And yeah, it's just hard not to take the woman's side of this in this argument whatsoever. I mean, if this lawsuit ends up being true and like these, it sounds like there's no reason to believe it's not true in general. Like, this really could be the end of Deshaun Watson's career as a whole. But yeah, like I said, that's from Microphone's video, The End of Deshaun Watson. You can go ahead and check that video out. I'll actually leave a link to it down in the description below, so you can go ahead and check that video out. But I wanted to cover that because that was one of the big stories that I thought could get a lot of information out of to you guys about. But there was one other big news story that happened in the world of the NFL, and it revolves around the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Let's talk about Tua Tagovailoa. So if you watched Thursday Night Football this week, you may have seen the Bills take on the Dolphins, and the Bills completely dismantling any hope the Dolphins had after coming back against the Jaguars when they were down 17-3 in that game. But yeah, the Bills won that game. They're 2-0 right now, but that wasn't the big story of this game in general. Of course, the big story, happened with Tua Tagovailoa. This was at a point when the Dolphins were down 31-10. Tua was hoping they could pull off a miracle run here. They were in the red zone when this moment I'm about to talk about happened, hoping to get some points here and get the game back in their favor. But it's 4th and 4. I've got the clip right here of what I'm about to talk about here. And Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for the Dolphins, he needs to get a first down. He decides that he gets it, but he's got to slide, and I think you know what happens here, but I'm going to go ahead and play the clip here and let you hear what happened.
Down by 21 points, 4th and 4. Pressure. Tua steps up. He's going to run for the first down and takes a shot at the 6-yard line. Hamlin hit him, and Tua down.
So yeah, Tua gets the first down. He slides, and then he runs into Damar Hamlin. And Tua, this is a kid who's had concussions three times in 2022. He didn't have any in 2023, but the ones that he had in Miami in 2022 were not only nationally seen by a ton of people, but they were concussions that, like, nobody should be taking 3 concussions in one season and expect to be able to continue playing as well as you have been playing before, because you make yourself an easy thing there. But those concussions were some scary ones, and there was even one on Thursday Night Football that year against Cincinnati, and that was the one that came 4 days after that first concussion from him when I think it was against the Buffalo Bills, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in week 3 or 4. It was something like that. But he also got a concussion during the Packer game on Christmas Day that year, and then now this past Thursday he gets the concussion. Didn't look as bad as the Cincinnati one. The Cincinnati one still looks the worst, where he's given where his fingers are all screwed up, and he just looked like he was out of it. And Cincinnati was a bad place to be in 2022. Because you had that, and then you had the Damar Hamlin situation, which, it's kind of funny, but also kind of unfortunate that Damar Hamlin got criticized by Miami Dolphins fans for a dirty hit in general. In fact, Ghetto Gronk, which I mentioned earlier in the last story, posted a video. I don't know why he has this video ready to go whenever Damar Hamlin does something, but he posted this clip of from Brothers, where the daughter of one of the if you ever seen the movie Brothers with Tobey Maguire and Jake Gyllenhaal, Tobey Maguire, his daughter is literally talking back to his father, and Ghetto Gronk puts this tweet up. I swear he has this clip ready to go whenever he needs it. And the tweet is, Dolphins fans to Damar Hamlin after he knocked Tua out of the game. And if you listen closely, you hear this little girl saying, "Why didn't you just stay dead?" I mean, that is ridiculous, and it's just you want to blame it because it's a division rival. Okay, yeah, you can do that if you want to, but it wasn't a dirty hit at all. And for the record, that was all on Tua, because he has this problem where, yeah, you want to get I know you're trying to play the hero and try to get your team back in this game, but when you slide the ball, you have to be smarter than that. You can't go head first like that, and as you got a defender right there. Like most quarterbacks, when they slide legs first, so they don't take a hit. They don't take a hit right from the get-go. But Tua was positioning himself for that to happen, and naturally they took him out of the game. And of course that was the right thing. That was of course the right thing to do. But now there's been a lot of questions about whether or not should Tua Tagovailoa retire, and I had those thoughts too. It's just it's one of those things where it's just you don't want to do that because this guy, he just got paid 2 months before the season began. He got that big contract he rightfully deserved. It was like a 4-year, $217 million deal, I think it was. Let me see what the contract was, because it was something like that. It was like a 4-year extension, and for $212 million with $167 million in guaranteed money. So he gets $167 million regardless of what happens. And there was a lot of debate on whether or not Tua should step down or not. Should he retire? Should he decide to put the focus back on his family? And Mike McDaniel can come off as a little bit obnoxious sometimes. He's one of the youngest coaches in the National Football League. And whenever you hear him talk, it's just he's got that stoner mentality to him. It's just hey man, everything's cool and all, but you could definitely tell that he does care for his quarterback. And even in that meeting they had the day after the game in general, which was the more I looked at it, the more I realized that this guy does know what is. I may have been criticizing the guy for some of the stuff for the way he runs things in general, but when he talked about Tua in general, he really does care about the spirit, about what his quarterback is going through here. Let me see if I can find that specific moment in general. And this is from the presser from Friday morning, and let me go ahead and let you listen in.
The team and the organization.
Let me see if I can find a better version of it here.
When you were on the field with Tua last night as he was coming off, and you were able to kiss him as he walked up, what did you tell Tua?
I said, you're, yeah. I told him he's, the starting quarterback of his family. And that, to go in the locker room, take a deep breath, and I'll see you soon.
When you were on the field with Tua last night as he was coming off, and you were able to...
I mean, it's not the whole clip in general, but you get kind of the idea here that Mike McDaniel really does care about Tua in general. And here's what he was talking about when people saying that Tua should retire. So let me go ahead and play this for you.
I just wish that people would for a second hear what I'm saying, that bringing up his future is not in the best interest of him. So, I'm going to plead with everybody that, that does genuinely care, that should be the last thing on your mind. I just wish that people would for a second hear what I'm saying. Okay, they're just playing it again.
Which, I get what he's coming from here, but at the same time, it's hard not to have those conversations when you realize that this is the fourth concussions he's had ever since he got to the National Football League. And, you build that offensive line to help defend your player in general. But then again, in this situation, it was all on Tua for this one. But there is an update to this storyline here. And before I even get to that, I just saw this on the side, which is very interesting. Tua Tagovailoa's contract has no concussion clauses, exceptions, or waivers. And this is from, again, Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio saying this. But here's what the story here, before I get to what I was going to talk about. In the aftermath of the latest concussion suffered by Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, many have chimed in with an opinion that he should retire. Those advising retirement include Amazon Prime's Tony Gonzalez and Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce. As explained last night, the decision to retire will come only after he is cleared to play and decides not to. Before he can retire, doctors would have to decide that he can and should be cleared. Despite officially 3 and unofficially at least 4 concussions, including at least 2 that were seriously enough to spark the fencing posture. On one hand, it's not the time to talk about money. On the other hand, the money is too big to ignore. We've obtained a copy of his contract to confirm that it contains the usual standard language that would put him in the usual standard situation if he were to retire from the game only 2 games into it. The contract contains no clauses or exceptions or waivers regarding concussions. The word concussion isn't even mentioned in this, thus all injury guarantees applied even if the injuries in question are concussions. Likewise, the same consequences would arise as for any other player if Tua were to choose to retire only 2 games into the 5-year contract. As noted last night, the contract carries more than $167 million in injury guarantees. He also earned a $42 million signing bonus upon the execution of the deal. The contract requires $15 million to be paid before August 31st, 2024, $15 million to be paid by October 15th, 2024, and the remaining $12 million to be paid out as part of his 18 weekly game checks. If Tua retires after being cleared to play, Tua will lose the balance of the guarantees. Also, if the Dolphins were inclined to exercise those rights to recover paid but unearned signing bonus money, they could seek $8.4 million from each year remaining on the contract through 2028, along with $466,667 for each game left in 2024 after he's cleared. These numbers are important to consider when looking at the broader question of whether he should retire. 2 years ago, retirement wouldn't have come with the massive 9-figure financial consequences. While pondering his best path forward, Tua will have to consider this. The Dolphins, meanwhile, facing the prospect of paying more than $167 million over the next 3 years if Tua isn't cleared to play. The real dollars also become cap dollars that the Dolphins wouldn't have for other players. It sets up an awkward dance. In the end, there could be a negotiating compromise for example, Tua retiring and Miami retaining half of the $167 million. However, if it plays out, everyone knows that Tua was one snap during any given game from a concussion that would be calling his playing career into question. The contract negotiated and signed by the Dolphins and Tua nevertheless has no language affording any special rights to the player or the team in the event that he can't be cleared to play or that he chooses to stop playing, even if it's cleared. So, essentially, the concussion thing isn't really a factor in his contract in general. He is going to meet with neurologists this week, but there was a story that came out not too long after that particular story from ESPN. NFL.com has this here, and it says that Tua Tagovailoa has no plans to retire after suffering the latest concussion. And it says, Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa has no plans to retire after suffering from his latest concussion. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport was reported Sunday on NFL Game Day morning, per sources informed of the situation. While there is no current timeline for a return, Tagovailoa has already begun the process of seeing concussion specialists and will continue to do so until he and his doctors deem him ready and healthy. The Dolphins QB suffered a concussion in Thursday night's loss. Let's see if there's any new information here. Tagovailoa's injury occurred when the Dolphins trailing 31-10 in the third quarter, when the signal callers scrambled for 6 yards on a fourth down run. Tagovailoa has a head-first collision with Bills safety Damar Hamlin, and the Dolphin QB stayed down while being seen by the team's medical professionals on the road. On the field. I cannot talk today. I'm sorry. By the team's medical professionals on the field. He was able to walk off under his own power and was ruled out with a concussion. Miami backup QB Skylar Thompson finished the game following Tagovailoa's exit. The Dolphins are expected to elevate Tim Boyle on the practice squad with no timeline on Tagovailoa. So, he does not plan on retiring, which on one hand, I'll give him credit. The guy is a trooper, but at the same time, this is a very difficult situation here because, yeah, I want this guy to succeed in the National Football League, but when you have 3-4 concussions like that, and 2 of them were very severe ones, that were seen by a national television audience of like over 30 million people. I think this last Amazon game was watched by like 31 million people in total. So 31 million people saw Tua getting injured like that, and it's just like how much more can this guy really take? And you really risk the opportunity of him having a really bad situation happening with his brain and all that. Like, let me put it this way: Antonio Brown is telling you to retire, who had one of the worst concussions that really damaged his brain in general when he got hit in the Cincinnati AFC wildcard game in 2016. But, and of course, look what's happening to him now. But Antonio Brown is telling you to retire. Antonio Brown. Once again, Antonio Brown. Like, what more do I even need to say about that? But it's a very difficult situation indeed. Like, yeah, I get it. I get why he wants to keep playing. He should keep playing. He deserved it after what the team treated him with in the first 4 years of his time there. But it didn't get really good for the Miami Dolphins until they got Mike McDaniel and they brought Tyreek Hill in. Like, it's a very complicated situation right now for Miami in general and Tua in general, because he's got kids, he's got a family too, and you really don't want to risk this guy having something really bad happen to him, where he can't come home to his kids again or his wife. Like, it's a very, very difficult situation. He says he's not going to retire, which I'm not going to argue with that. I mean, you do what you got to do, man. But I really hope that somebody out there is just telling them, hey, you got to be careful, man. You got to really learn how to get yourself in a game like situation like that. Like, you have to be better prepared for situations like this. And this is just like, it's a really hard thing to really digest in general. Personally, if you want my opinion, I probably would, if I was in that situation, I'd probably tell them to call it quits, because you don't want to keep risking these hits in general. But then again, I'm not a head coach, and I'm not a head coach of the Miami Dolphins. I'm not running anything in the Miami Dolphins organization. I think I could run a football team better than some teams in the NFL. But then again, I play Madden all the time, and I usually can win those games easily. But then again, I have the power of turning the game off whenever I throw an interception or have a bad loss in general. But that's not important here. What is important here is that the Miami Dolphins, the situation going on with them, the good news is that they have time to really figure out where they go from here. It's going to be a very tough schedule for them going forward, because they've got Seattle next week. They've got when do they play New England? I think New England is at the end of in October. I think. Let me see. But there's a possibility they could be 1-4 if they're riding on the back of Skylar Thompson right now. So they go to Seattle next week. They have a Monday night game against Tennessee, which Tennessee probably is not a good football team. Tennessee's not a good football team right now, but that could change entirely. That's that game from last year where the Dolphins had the lead over Tennessee, and then Tennessee came all the way back in that one. So I would think the Dolphins are going to want revenge in that one. and then they go to New England, which lost today in overtime. There's a possibility the Dolphins could be 1-4 when this is all set, when they get to the bye week on October 13th. So it's a very precarious situation right now for this team in general, and where the direction to go is with this team. But I don't know. Like, I get why Tua feels like he needs to stay in there. He's got to make do with that contract. But I personally would have told him to retire. But then again, I'm not running anything in the Miami Dolphins organization. So that's the story there. But with all that said, let's go ahead and move away from the NFL and get to a couple other things I wanted to bring up. So after over a year of basically confirming Ryan Seacrest as the host of Wheel of Fortune, we finally got the premiere episodes of Ryan Seacrest's new run on Wheel of Fortune this week. And if you did not get to see a little bit of it, here's a little bit of a taste of that from this audio clip I have here.
And now, together for the first time, here are the stars of our show, Ryan Seacrest and Vanna White.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Welcome to the show.
So happy to be here.
So good to have you.
Let's have fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi. Good to see you too. Welcome. Nice to have you. Welcome to Wheel of Fortune. I am your host, Ryan Seacrest. I still can't believe my luck in being here with you tonight to continue this legacy of this incredible show with all of you. And of course, my good friend Vanna White. Thank you for the very warm welcome. Hosting Wheel of Fortune is a dream job. I've been a fan of this show since I was a kid watching it in Atlanta with my family, and I know how special it is that Wheel has been in your living rooms for the past 40 years. And I'm just so grateful to be invited in. I also know I've got some very big shoes to fill. So, let's play Wheel of Fortune.
So really, nothing really changed in general in terms of, does Ryan Seacrest have the opening day jitters? And just like, no, not really. I mean, it's Ryan Seacrest. I mean, the dude, he hosts like 30 different shows on TV. He hosted like 30 different shows on television at one point, and so him hosting Wheel of Fortune is not really much of a big deal in general. So he's the least of the problems. He did what he had to do, and he's doing pretty good. So so far. The real thing that really bugs me about the show in general, which I think is still as entertaining as it was before, is that they do make some odd changes to the show in general. Well, like the new set they have. It looks like a very, very generic set in general. Like, it's not the same, like the sets of the olden days, like, are much more grander. You can see more of the production value being put into it. But I'm looking at it I'm looking at an image of it right here. You got the puzzle board on the left. You've got these things that look like the wheels, like wheels that you would see like in the world of Tron on the left. And then you got this big area where, Ryan Seacrest and Vanna White come out to do the show. And it just feels the set feels kind of bland in general. Like, it doesn't have that spectacle that you had, especially in the early years of Wheel of Fortune. It just feels like they've simplified it to a point where, yeah, it does get distracting, but a lot of the elements that make Wheel of Fortune fun are still there. The puzzles are still very fun. The wheel, like, I like that it looks like they've gone back to, the wheel doesn't feel like it's doing, they're not cutting corners with, like, the editing and all that. Like, the wheel is actually, that wheel actually does feel like it's supposed to do in real life. Like, if you're watching this on the air, like, it doesn't feel like they're just cutting to a specific spot there where it feels like the wheel's completely out of place, like it did in the last couple of years of the show. The concept of the show overall is still very fun in a number of different ways. Like, you still get the same feel of Wheel of Fortune. Vanna's still there. She hits the buttons. Touches the pads there. Even though the whole thing this time around is that Wheel of Fortune is that the board itself is, I think, it's just a complete straight CG computer wall in general. So you really could just go anywhere. Could touch anywhere on there and the puzzle will come up instantaneously, instead of like it did back in the early days where it was like a simple square in general. But overall, my thoughts on it is that it's not bad. It's not a bad show at all. It's pretty much the classic Wheel of Fortune set format, with a set that seems a little too simplistic for its own good, but there's some brief changes they add to it, like in the bonus round for some reason this week. They decided to add a little extra to it by adding a G to it, to the final letters in the bonus round, because evidently LG, because LG sponsored it, and we got to give them something to do here. And Ryan Seacrest is doing a decent job here. He's not trying to copy Pat Sajak. It's not clearly trying to be the new Pat Sajak. He's making it his own thing, just like how Drew Carey did it with The Price is Right, and the success he's had with that. Wayne Brady on Let's Make a Deal, Steve Harvey on Family Feud, that type of stuff. He's not just repeating the same thing that Pat Sajak had done before, and he's making it his own thing. And yeah, if you like Wheel of Fortune before, you're gonna like it the way it is now. Unfortunately, I can't find the full shows in general. But if you have YouTube TV, you can just type in Wheel of Fortune. You can just find them on there instantaneously. But yeah, not much more to say about that one. Wheel of Fortune gets a new host, and a new generation begins. A new revitalization begins there. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last thing I want to cover. So earlier in the week, we sadly lost a titan in the world of entertainment. James Earl Jones passed away on Monday, and I found this out when I was at work. 93 years old. The guy lived to be 93 years old, and of course, he's one of the few people to achieve the legendary EGOT, the Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. He was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame in '85. His legacy has included the National Media Arts Honor, the Kennedy Center Honor, Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award, an Academy Honorary Award member. He's been known for his extensive and acclaimed roles on stage and screen. Just a legend in this industry, and they named a theater after him on Broadway, with the legacy that he left behind. I mean, he's left behind. I mean, this guy is just one of the greatest actors we've ever had, and it's really hard not to see why, because no matter who you are, and no matter what demographic you are, or what age group you're in, he has left a lasting impact on your life, all the way back to the very beginning of his career, when he shows up as Lieutenant Zog in Dr. Strangelove. The list of movies here that I have right here, stuff like the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings, playing Malcolm X in The Greatest, Darth Vader in Star Wars, he was in all of course he's in all the Star Wars movies. He did stuff like, Return of the Jedi, stuff like Soul Man, like he did stuff like Gardens of Stone, The King and King Joffrey and Coming to America. He was in Three Fugitives, Field of Dreams, The Hunt for Red October. Great cheesy, corny stuff like Larry Cohen's The Ambulance, which is one of those hilarious, over-the-top movies of his. Patriot, the Jack Ryan movies where he shows up as James Greer. Sneakers, Summersby, The Sandlot where he's Mr. Myrtle. The Meteor Man, of course, Mufasa from The Lion King. Great stuff like The Family Thing. Casper, Spirit of Beginning, where he played Kibosh. What else? He was Martin Luther King Sr. in Our Friend Martin. He did Fantasia 2000. He was in Robots, The Benchwarmers, Click, Scary Movie 4. Driving Miss Daisy, the Australian production of it, not with Angela Lansbury. He did a lot of stuff all the way to the very end of his career, and the guy is just a visionary, man. And we're not even talking about, that's just his movie work. When you look at his television work too, he's done a ton of TV work on various shows. I just did a review for September, The Simpsons, talking about the Treehouse of Horror episode that he did, the first episode where he played three characters in the first Treehouse of Horror episode, and his performance in my favorite segment of Treehouse of Horror is The Raven, which is basically just a retelling of The Raven done with Homer Simpson as the narrator, and then you have James Earl Jones doing the audio narration of it, and it's just such a classic moment. That was my introduction to the story of The Raven, and I just want you to listen to some of this here, because it's pitch perfect, man.
The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary,
while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
"'Tis some visitor,"
I muttered,
"tapping at my chamber door."
Only this and nothing more.
Are we scared yet? Bye.
Not a minute.
And like my favorite moment in this, I mentioned it in the review I did, is when Homer is just doing the whole thing about calling out the Raven, and you have James Earl Jones' narration in the background. Like, it's one of the most pitch-perfect performances from Dan Castellaneta's, because you have to tell this guy, we need you to do the Raven, not just as Homer Simpson, but we need you to call out this Raven, just like in the storyline, but do it in the voice of Homer Simpson. And so, like, the way it's presented here is just great stuff. And I'm going to start it off from a little bit before this, so I can give you the full context of the scene in general.
Here swung by Seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor.
Wretch!
I cried.
Thy God hath led thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore.
Quoth the Raven.
Nevermore.
Don't be that word outside of parting! Banner feet!
I shrieked up, starting.
Get thee back into the tempest and the nice Plutonian shore! No, leave no black plume as a token of the lie. Thy soul has spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from off my heart, and take thy form from off my door.
Quoth the Raven.
Nevermore.
Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door.
Quoth the Raven.
Nevermore.
You little...
Yeah, just a great line reading there, and you mix in Homer's seriously deep performance with James Earl Jones' narration. It just comes together so well, even in the ending when it's all said and done.
And the Raven, ever flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of
Sorry,
palace,
accidentally
just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
I mean, James Earl Jones could really honestly just read a phone book to you, and it would just be incredible. But of course every kid that grew up in the 90s knew him, of course, as Mufasa from The Lion King, and it's just a great performance overall from James Earl Jones in there, even after he dies. But the moment that I think strikes with everybody is that moment when this is after Simba disobeys his father and goes into the elephant graveyard and gets caught, he gets in trouble, and so they're having this talk, and then at the end they kind of make amends, and then this moment where Simba goes, we're pals, right? And he's just like, yeah, right, and we'll always be together forever. And then he goes into that little soliloquy about looking up at the stars in general, and it's just a great moment in general. Let me see if I can go ahead and find it here. Here it is.
I was right.
Right.
And we'll always be together, right?
Simba, let me tell you something that my father told me. Look at the stars. The great kings of the past look down on us from those stars.
Really?
Yes. So whenever you feel alone, just remember that those kings will always be there to guide you. And so am I.
And now more than ever, if you look up in the stars, you could probably see James Earl Jones up there right now looking down on all of us. Like, just such a great moment in general, and the legacy this guy leaves behind. Like, he could be a villain too. He played a great villain, of course, with Darth Vader. Just one of the most significant entertainers of our generation. It's just a shame that he's no longer with us anymore, and just like a huge chunk of a lot of people's lives were taken away when he left us this week. So, James Earl Jones, you leave a legacy behind you. Rest in peace, man. We'll be looking up in the stars every day, and hopefully you'll be looking down on all of us. So with that said, let's go ahead and get to some recommendations so we can wrap this up. Well, ordinarily this is where I would have some recommendations for you, but honestly, it's a slow release week. I mean, we've got Agatha All Along coming out on Wednesday the 18th on Disney Plus. So that's something we can all look forward to. But other than that, though, in terms of like new releases, new physical media releases, slow week. I mean, last week we had Inside Out 2 come out, which was the big new release, and then next week will be Bad Boys for Life. So we're still in that 2 week releasing pat scheduling thing. But yeah, it's not an interesting new release week in terms of physical media. So I guess if I have to give you some recommendations, I go back to the James Earl Jones arguments. Not even argument, but the list of movies I mentioned. Great films he was in. Like I said, Doctor Strangelove, of course, The Great White Hope, Bing Along, Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings, the Star Wars movies, Conan the Barbarian, Soul Man, Gardens of Stone, Coming to America, Field of Dreams, Hunt for Red October, The Ambulance, pretty much all the Jack Ryan movies he was in. Sneakers, The Sandlot, Lion King, of course. Let's see, Family Thing, Our Friend Martin. Anything else? I think that's it for the movies, but he's been in a lot of great TV shows too. Like I said, The Simpsons, Gabriel's Fire, just so many different shows with him involved in it. Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course. Just great actor, man. Like, I don't know if I have any other more movies I can really mention here, but that's the best I can do for recommendations. Just go ahead and have a James Earl Jones weekend, man. Like, honor the legend. So, with all that said, that's going to wrap this episode of the Reviewing Network Live up for this week. So, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We post here on this channel every single day. We have new videos coming out every day, including the Time About the Movies clipless versions. We're finally entering 2004, so we're about right where we should be, closing in on where we are currently with the 2005 videos over on the main channel. We've also started, we also have trailer reactions, and this week we started the NFL predictions videos. Those will be coming out every day during the NFL regular season, so be on the lookout for those during the week. We post other videos on both channels every day, so please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button on this channel, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button over on the main channel as well. So, with all that said, thank you so much for watching and listening. I will see you guys next week, and until then, we are out.